This feels like home, Wade whispered, as laughter rolled around Geneva's Sunday table. Jesse was still pointing at Amos's crooked slice of bread when he noticed Geneva's hand resting over Wade's, and his grin vanished. "Then whose place are you taking?" the boy asked. Geneva's fingers closed more firmly around Wade's beside the oil lamp. The touch should have steadied him. Instead, it made the door at his back feel nearer. Across the table, 8-year-old Lottie clutched the little wooden horse he had carved for her. Ellie Mercer held the bread knife in mid-air. Amos Carver lowered the oversized slice that had made them all laugh a heartbeat before. Wade knew how to leave a room before a room rejected him. He had been practicing since he was 16. But Geneva did not release his hand. The log kitchen glowed the way a good life was supposed to glow. Fire in the stone hearth, brown loaves split open on the table, dented tin cups. 6 chairs pulled close against the Nevada cold. Wade had spent 3 weeks pretending he noticed none of it. Now, one frightened boy had named the danger in plain words. If Wade stayed, Jesse feared losing his father a second time. If Wade stood, Geneva would hear the old answer he had given every place that ever offered warmth, not long enough to be missed. 3 weeks earlier, Wade had ridden into the Great Basin way station with 6 remount horses, a lame roan, and a signed order that required him to remain 4 days. Geneva met him at the trough before he had both boots out of the stirrups. "You are late," she said. "You still open with kindness, I see. You still arrive after the kindness has gone to bed." 7 years had changed the girl he remembered into a woman who wore responsibility as plainly as the flower on her sleeve. She was 30, with dark hair pinned high, a gray dress hemmed for work, and the particular stillness of someone who could not afford to look tired until everyone else was asleep. Her brother, Samuel, had died the previous winter. The station, the stage teams, the accounts, and Samuel's 2 children had fallen to her. Wade dismounted. The bays needed pacing. 4 days, that is what the order says. 4 days. Geneva agreed too quickly. She led him to the same end stall he had used when he was 26, and poor enough to count oats before feeding his own horse. The peg for his bridle was still crooked. The sight of it unsettled him more than it should have. At supper, Geneva set a bowl for him in the kitchen. Wade carried it to the barn and ate on an overturned bucket beside the lame roan. He told himself the horse required watching. The truth was that the kitchen windows shone across the yard, and a man could mistake that kind of light for an invitation. The next morning, half a loaf of fresh bread rested on the corral rail near his saddle, wrapped in a clean cloth. There was no note. Geneva did not look toward him when he found it. Wade ate the heel first, because it was the part a guest could take, without imagining anyone had saved the middle for him. The station ran on work and stubbornness. Wade checked hooves, cooled teams, mended a split breast strap, and watered the remounts in an order the animals understood better than most men. Geneva kept the stage times, weighed flour, counted blankets settled, travelers, and inspected the cistern every morning. Ellie Mercer cooked, mended, and knew every family between Carson City and the Utah Road. She had also begun sorting Samuel's winter chest, deciding which coat might be let out or cut down for Jesse before the first hard cold. Amos Carver repaired whatever the rest of them broke, and complained that people were harder to mend than harness. Jesse 10 tried to be older whenever Geneva looked at him. Lottie 8 tried to be wherever she had been told not to stand. On Wade's second afternoon, she followed him into the corral and pointed at a gray gelding that had refused the bit twice. "I am naming him Sunday," she announced. "Poor beast," Wade said. "What did he do to deserve a church name? He is only good 1 day a week." Geneva passed with a bucket of oats and laughed before she could hide it. "Then he and Wade may be kin." The laugh struck Wade harder than an insult would have. It was the same laugh he remembered from 7 years before, when she had stolen apples from the station pantry and blamed him because her father was less likely to dismiss a cowhand than scold his daughter. Wade lost his grip on the currycomb. It landed in the dust. Lottie stared at it. "Did Sunday frighten you?" "Near to death." Geneva's smile stayed with him long after she walked away. Godfrey Vaughan arrived the next morning in a clean buckboard with polished lamps and no dust on his cuffs. He was a distant cousin of Geneva's and held influence with the men who assigned remount work along the line. He stepped onto the porch as if he already owned the boards. Wade remained inside the barn doors, rubbing down a bay. He had learned that men like Godfrey spoke most freely when they believed the hired hands did not count as witnesses. "The company may bypass this stop before the first heavy snow," Godfrey said. "They do not trust a woman and 2 children to keep 12 fresh horses ready." "They trust the horses when they leave here," Geneva replied. "They trust Samuel's name. Samuel is gone." The yard seemed to draw tight around those words. Jesse stood near the woodpile with an armful of kindling. His chin rose, but his face went pale. Godfrey softened his voice in the manner of a man placing a knife beneath a napkin. "Sell to me. Ellie and Amos may stay as paid help. The children can go east to my sister. She has a proper house." Jesse dropped one stick. Geneva stepped between Godfrey and the boy. "This is their proper house." "Then prove you can keep it. The company agent comes on Sunday. If he finds the station poorly managed, the route moves south." Godfrey glanced toward Wade. "Keeping a penniless cowhand past his order will not help. It makes you look like an object of charity." Wade set down the brush. Anger came easily to him. Using it well had taken years. He crossed the yard until Godfrey had to acknowledge him. "Careful," Wade said. "Your coat may hear you speak of work and lose its shine." Amos into his fist. Ellie turned her face toward the kitchen so no one would see her smile. Godfrey's eyes hardened. "You are temporary. So is a toothache. Folks still mind where it bites." Genesis gave Wade a warning look, then faced Godfrey herself. "Send the agent. He will find the teams, ready the books straight, and this station standing." Godfrey tipped his hat. Sunday, then. When the buckboard disappeared into the basin dust, Jesse looked at Geneva. "Are you going to make Wade our new pa, so we do not have to leave?" The question hit the yard harder than Godfrey's threat. "No," Geneva said at once. "Wade is here for the horses." Wade knew she had answered the child's fear, not judged the man. That did not keep the words from finding the sore place in him. He turned back to the barn before anyone could see it. That afternoon, Geneva sent Jesse to help him examine a winded sorrel. She stood at the gate with her arms folded. "Do not order him about," she said. "I had planned to teach him by insult and starvation." "I remember your methods." "So do I. That is why I changed them." The last line quieted them both. Wade knelt beside the horse and asked Jesse what he saw. The boy guessed badly, then less badly. Wade made him count the animal's breaths, feel the heat beneath the jaw, and notice how the ears moved before the feet did. When Jesse slipped from the lower rail, Wade did not snatch him up. He held out one hand. "You want help, or have you found your feet?" Jesse looked toward Geneva, then pushed himself upright. "Found them." "Good. Keep them. Men lose sense faster when they are off their feet." Jesse almost smiled. Geneva watched from the gate. Wade felt her gaze and kept his own on the sorrel. He wanted her to see that he could stand near a child without claiming him, help without taking command, stay without crowding what grief had left behind. Wanting her to see it was the dangerous part. Over the next few days, their work began to overlap in small ways. Geneva left a cup of coffee on the pump ledge before dawn. Wade repaired the loose kitchen shutter without announcing it. She moved his name onto the ration slate, rubbed it out, then wrote it again. He pretended not to notice. At night, when he lay in the bunkhouse, he could hear the family through the yard. Lottie reading too loudly, Jessie correcting her, Ellie scolding Amos for feeding crusts to a dog that did not belong to them. The sounds disturbed his sleep more than coyotes ever had. On Wednesday, Godfrey returned with 2 company men and a local creditor who had known Samuel. Geneva served them stew at the long table in the main room. They asked about feed, winter drifts, axle grease, water depth, and the number of fresh teams she could turn out in an hour. None of the questions was foolish. The way they asked them was. They spoke over her answers. One man directed a question to Amos after Geneva had already answered it. Another asked whether she became confused when several coaches arrived together. Wade stood near the doorway with his hat in his hand. Every time Geneva's fingers tightened around her pencil, he wanted to step in. Every time she answered for herself. Then Godfrey asked, "And when the children fall ill at the same hour, a team goes lame, which duty does a woman neglect first?" Wade's restraint ended. He put his hat on the table between Godfrey and the ledger. "The team went lame last February," Wade said. "Yes, had lung fever the same night. Miss Brock changed the horse, sat with the boy, and had the eastbound coach out before dawn. Amos told me. "Ask a useful question or finish your supper." The creditor stared at him. One company man hid a smile. Geneva's eyes flashed not with helpless gratitude, but with anger that Wade had entered her ground. He knew it at once. Godfrey leaned back. "There, that is the very trouble. A woman alone must borrow a man's temper." Geneva closed the ledger. "No, the trouble is that you mistake courtesy for permission." She looked at Wade. "And you mistake defense for authority." The rebuke landed clean. Wade lifted his hat from the table. "Yes, ma'am." He stepped back. Geneva reopened the ledger and finished the questioning in her own voice. She made the company men compare feed losses from her station with the southern stop Godfrey favored. Her figures were better. She asked them whether they wished to move a line for reasons of business or because her cousin disliked taking orders from a woman. Neither answered. The meeting ended without a promise. Godfrey and the others rose, leaving half their stew and all their judgment behind. Geneva remained at the head of the table. Jessie and Lottie watched from the hallway. Wade could have gone to the bunkhouse. Instead, he pulled out the chair beside Geneva and sat. "I spoke where I should have held my tongue," he said. "You meant well. That has buried many a fool." One corner of her mouth moved. "It has. I am sorry." Geneva studied him, perhaps waiting for the excuse that did not come. "Thank you for stopping when I asked. That part cost more than the apology." "I know." Amos began gathering plates. Wade rolled up his sleeves and carried the iron pot to the washstand. He worked beside Amos in silence while Ellie wrapped the untouched bread. No one thanked him. The lack of ceremony made the task feel strangely close to belonging. When he left, his clean bowl sat on the kitchen shelf instead of being wrapped for the barn. The next afternoon, Geneva came to the bunkhouse carrying the station ledger and the children's 2 school books. "The kitchen table is covered in flour," she said. "Ellie says the mice have declared war on paper." Wade looked around the room. There was 1 cot, 1 chair, a saddle blanket, and the wooden lockbox he had carried from Texas to Oregon and back. Everything he owned could be loaded in the time it took another man to finish breakfast. He opened the box. His spare shirt, shaving cup, winter socks, and a packet of old letters filled it. After a moment, he moved his belongings to the right and left half the box empty. Geneva set the books and ledger inside. Her fingers rested on the lid. You still keep room for leaving. It is easier when the room never fills. That sounds lonely. It is orderly. It is cowardly. Wade's jaw tightened. 7 years ago. Her father had called him worse before paying him 2 months' wages to leave the basin. A horse theft had been laid at Wade's father's feet. No court had convicted him, but respectable men had repeated the accusation until innocence ceased to matter. Wade had learned what a name could cost when people with land decided a poor man did not deserve one. I have never been asked to stay anywhere that did not come with reins or a shovel, he said. A man grows tired of guessing when he will outlive his use. Geneva's face softened, but she did not offer pity. That was one of the reasons he could not stop watching her. The company agent comes Sunday, she said. I need the station to pass. I need Jesse and Lottie to know no one can divide this household because Samuel died. You will pass. I did not come for a promise. No. I came to ask whether I should set your bowl at the table. Wade looked at the open lockbox, half filled with the station's future, and half with the few things he could carry away. Set it if you want me there, he said. Geneva held his gaze. That is not an answer a woman can use. He nearly smiled. Then yes. She closed the lid. Good. At the door she paused. And Wade? Yes. If you speak over me again on Sunday, Ellie will put you outside with the dishwasher. Ellie has wanted cause for years. This time Geneva let him see the smile. That evening, Wade began carving 2 horses from a scrap of pine. He told himself they were payment for Jesse's help and Lottie's running commentary. Yet he shaped the ears carefully because Lottie noticed ears, and he left Jesse's horse unbranded because the boy flinched whenever adults discussed ownership. He had made gifts before. He had never made them while wondering where they would sit in a house after he was gone. Saturday morning, Godfrey found him at the pump with a leather pouch in one hand. Men along the winter line still remember your father's name, Godfrey said. Take the foreman's place at Silver Peak, ride before sundown, and the silver is yours. Stay here, and I make certain every contractor hears that his son proved no wiser than he was. The insult struck where Godfrey intended. Wade looked at the pouch, then toward the porch. Geneva stood in the doorway with Jesse beside her. He could take the money, spare himself a hungry winter, and tell himself he had left for her good. That was the old trick. Call fear a sacrifice, and ride before anyone could challenge the name. Wade took the pouch. Godfrey smiled. Wade placed it on the trough where water splashed the leather dark. You already used my father's name to drive me out once, Wade said. You do not get to sell it back to me. Godfrey's face hardened. Your winter work is gone. Then I will be cold. You think she will keep feeding a man with no contract? Wade stepped close enough that Godfrey's smile vanished. His anger wanted a fist. Geneva did not need a fist. She needed Sunday. That is for her to decide, Wade said, and for me to hear without running. Godfrey climbed into the buckboard and left the pouch where it lay. Wade turned toward the porch. Geneva's expression held gratitude, worry, and something warmer that he did not trust himself to name. You should have taken the foreman's place, she said. Do you want me gone? No. The word came so quickly that Jesse looked up at her. Wade felt the answer in his chest. Then the foreman's place was not the better one. On Sunday, the company agent arrived an hour before noon, with a coach full of passengers, 4 blown horses, and a cracked trace. Godfrey came behind him in the buckboard, dressed for victory. The yard erupted. Geneva did not. She sent Amos for the spare trace, Ellie for water, Jesse to open the north gate, and Lottie to stand on the porch where no hoof could find her. She ordered Wade to bring out the chestnut team and keep the gray in reserve. Wade moved when she spoke and stopped when she raised a hand. He did not turn her orders into his own. When the agent asked him whether the chestnuts could pull the eastern grade, Wade answered, "Miss Brock chose them. She knows this road better than I do." Godfrey tried to pull Wade aside. "Use the gray pair. The agent favors matched color." Wade kept tightening the trace. "This is Miss Brock's yard. The gray pair will look better." "The chestnuts will breathe better." Geneva heard them.
"Chestnuts," she called. Wade met Godfrey's eyes and buckled the last strap. The coach left in 22 minutes, with a sound team, a repaired trace, full water kegs, and every passenger accounted for. Jessie had remembered to chalk the departure time without being told. Lottie had remained on the porch for nearly 6 minutes before carrying cups to the passengers, which Ellie declared a miracle worthy of Sunday. The agent inspected the stalls, the feed bins, the ledger, and the cistern. He asked Geneva why her winter grain moss was lower than the southern stops. She explained her storage racks and the new stone lip around the feed room. Wade had built the lip, but she had designed it. He said nothing until the agent asked. "Miss Brock found the waste," Wade said. "I only moved the rock where she marked." The agent looked from him to Geneva. "You take direction well for a trail man." "Not always," Geneva said. Wade rubbed his jaw. "I am under correction." Even the agent laughed. By late afternoon, he gave Geneva his decision in the yard rather than behind a closed door. "The line stays," he said. "Your station will keep the winter remount work. Any man who doubts your management may compare the figures himself." Jessie made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. Lottie threw both arms around Geneva's waist. Amos removed his hat. Ellie sat down on the porch step as though her knees had been waiting all day for permission. Godfrey said, "This proves one day, not a winter." Geneva faced him. "Then come back in spring and look from the road. You will not be welcome on the porch." The agent glanced at Godfrey. "The contract is with the station, not with you. See that you remember it." Godfrey left without offering Wade another job. Wade should have felt free. Instead, the passing of the danger exposed a harder question. His 4 days had become 3 weeks. His winter work was gone. The station no longer required him to prove anything. That made every reason to stay personal. Near sunset, Jessie found him behind the barn with the 2 carved horses. "You made those for us, if you want them." Jessie watched the knife smooth the last rough edge. "Do not put your name on mine." Wade stopped. "Why not? If it is ours, it is ours. Men put names on things when they mean to take them back." The boy was not speaking only of toys. Wade folded the knife. "No names." Jessie picked up the darker horse. "Are you leaving tomorrow?" "I have not decided." That means yes when grown people say it. Sometimes. Jessie stared toward the kitchen windows. Aunt Geneva set 6 bowls. Wade's throat tightened. "Then I had best wash." He scrubbed his hands at the pump until the water ran clear. He changed into the least worn shirt in his lockbox and nearly laughed at himself for combing his hair twice. When he entered the kitchen, the fire was high, the table crowded, and his bowl sat beside Geneva's. Ellie ladled stew. Amos cut the bread crookedly, leaving one slice nearly twice the size of the others. "You have made a favorite," Ellie told him. Providence chose the knife. "Providence can wash it," Lottie laughed. Jessie pointed at the great slice and declared it big enough to roof the chicken shed. Geneva's hand found Wade's beside the oil lamp. The room was still laughing when his longing escaped him. "This feels like home," Wade whispered. Jesse's finger remained lifted, but his grin faded when he saw their joined hands. "Then whose place are you taking?" The warmth left the boy's face. Lottie pulled her horse close. Geneva slid both carvings beneath the breadboard, not to reject them, Wade understood, but to quiet the moment. His first instinct was to stand. He could feel the route to the door one step past the bench, hat from the peg, apology in the yard saddle before dawn. The old path was so familiar that his body had already prepared for it. Geneva tightened her hand over his. Wade stayed seated. "I am not taking anyone's place, Jesse," he said. "I do not want your pa's chair, his name, or the part of you that belongs to him." Jesse's mouth trembled. "Godfrey said a house needs a man." "Godfrey says many things because silence would make him ordinary." Amos made a choking sound into his cup. Even Jesse's eyes flickered. Wade went on. "This house did not need me to become a home. You, Lottie, your Aunt Ellie, and Amos already did that. I only want a place here if all of you are willing to make a new one." Jesse looked toward the empty chair at the head of the table. Samuel's chair. No one had moved it since winter. Wade had chosen the side bench on purpose. The boy reached beneath the breadboard, drew out the horses, and gave the lighter one to Lottie. He kept the dark one. "You can have the chair you were in," Jesse muttered. "Pa never sat there." Wade let out a breath he had been holding for 7 years. Lottie set her horse beside her bowl. "Can he stay through Monday?" Ellie said. "Bold of you to begin with forever." A small laugh moved around the table, but Geneva did not look away from Wade. "I want you to stay," she said. "Not because the station needs another hand. Not because the company man approved of you. I want you here because when you leave a room, I notice the empty place." Wade had faced stampedes, winter crossings, and men who reached for guns before sense. None had frightened him as deeply as a woman asking him to remain after his usefulness had ended. He turned his hand beneath hers and held on. "I came back because I heard Samuel was gone, and knew you would carry everything alone rather than ask," he said. "I told myself I came for the remount order. That was a lie I could ride with. I came for you." Geneva's eyes shone. "I love you." He said the words rough but clear. "I do not know how to belong without earning each meal. I may be poor at it." "Then practice here." "Are you certain?" "No," she said. "But I am certain I want the chance. That is enough for me." Their choice settled over the table without spectacle. Geneva did not promise him the station. Wade did not promise to solve her life. She asked him to stay. He answered without hiding behind work. Jesse returned to his stew. Lottie made the wooden horses drink from her cup until Ellie objected to pine in the broth. After supper, when the bowls were nearly clean, Ellie reached into her apron and drew out a packet wrapped in cracked oilcloth. "I found this yesterday while letting out the seams of Samuel's winter coat for Jesse," she said. "Samuel found it in your father's desk after the old man died. He told me Godfrey had been asking after old papers, so he hid them in the coat lining until he could put them in your hands. Then the fever took him before you came home." She handed it to Geneva. Her voice lowered. "Your name was written on the oilcloth." Inside lay the original land patent for the station, stamped "paid," along with a letter in Geneva's father's hand. Wade recognized the square, hard writing before she read the first line aloud. The letter had been written 7 years earlier. Geneva's father confessed that a drover had cleared Wade's father of the horse theft. Godfrey had known the accusation was false and repeated it anyway. Rather than defend an innocent man, Geneva's father had used the disgrace to force Wade from the basin. He had feared his daughter cared for a penniless cowhand and believed poverty made a man unworthy of the Brock name. Wade listened without moving. He had imagined many versions of the past. None had given his father back his honor. Geneva reached the final paragraph. Her father instructed her never to let a hired man hold part of the station, never to confuse gratitude with equality, and never to shame the family by marrying beneath it. The room went quiet again, but this silence belonged to the dead. Geneva tore the final paragraph from the letter. She carried that strip to the hearth and held it over the flame. The paper curled black between her fingers before she let it fall. She kept the confession and the land patent. "Tomorrow I will copy the confession and send it to every man who repeated the charge," she said. "Your father's name will not carry Godfrey's lie another mile." Wade could not speak at first. The gift was not land. It was not money. It was the end of a lie that had followed him across half the West. Geneva returned to the table. "And I will have your name added to the patent if you want it." Wade looked around the kitchen. Jessie had one hand on the carved horse. Lottie was asleep against Ellie's arm. Amos stacked cups by the washstand. Geneva stood before him with soot on one finger, and no trace of her father's command in her face. "No," Wade said. Her expression tightened. He rose before she could mistake him. "The station is yours. You held it when every man expected you to fail. I will not turn love into another claim on your work." "Then what do you want?" Wade glanced at his bowl. "To wake here tomorrow," he said. "To mend what you ask me to mend. To argue when I forget myself. Apologize when I deserve it. And sit in the chair Jessie gave me until he tells me I am crowding him." Jessie said, "I will." That brought the laughter back. Geneva stepped close. "And after tomorrow?" Wade looked at the woman he had once left because a rich man told him he was not fit to stay. This time, no one was paying him, hiring him, or granting him borrowed time. "Ask me again," he said. "I mean to keep answering." Geneva touched her forehead to his for one quiet moment. Then she lifted his bowl and placed it on the high shelf beside her own. Before dawn, Wade carried his saddlebags into the kitchen. He hung his spare shirt on a peg, set his shaving cup near the basin, and returned the children's books to the lockbox, leaving the left half open for whatever the house needed next. When Geneva came in, she found him feeding the fire, while Amos complained that a man who joined a household before coffee ought to be examined by a doctor. Geneva took 2 bowls from the shelf. Wade reached for his before she had to ask.